Make sure to go and check out all of our latest merch at paddockmerch.com. We've got loads of new designs and even more products coming all the time. With 2 or more items, you get 20% off using the code Paddock20. And if you remember, there's even bigger discounts available. Link is in the description.
Jay here, Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in the studio, which means it's live. So do get involved in the comments, get involved in the chat. Let us know what you think about the latest Manchester United news and what is going on. Obviously, it's the big one this weekend, or one of the big ones. The Manchester Derby. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer under all sorts of pressure. We know all about that. We've got a preview up for that one. If you've not seen it already, go and check that out. That's got Joe, it's got McCall, and it's got myself. Joe and McCall having a little bit of a debate. But in terms of today's news, a lot of the morning's papers or last night's sort of embargo news centred around Mason Greenwood not getting called up for England. Now, we know he didn't get called up for England. We knew that yesterday afternoon at 2 o'clock. But Gareth Southgate explained his decision, and some of that news was sort of embargoed. So we're just hearing about it last night, early this morning. Now, when it comes to Mason Greenwood not getting England squad, it does seem a bit odd because if you look at the seasons that he's had so far, I think it's 13 games in total, 9 in the Premier League, 4 goals, and you look at the nature of those goals as well. You look at the goal against Leeds, goal against Leicester, of course. I mean, there was a time earlier on this season when Mason Greenwood was sort of keeping United going, wasn't he? So he's got 4 goals in the Premier League, and he's got 1 assist in the Champions League. So he's doing okay. And you look at it compared to some of his England, well, can't say England teammates, he's not in the England squad, but some of the people that have been picked, and you think he's actually got a decent record when it compares to them, and you think that maybe he deserves a chance. You look at the likes of, I know they've got more experience in England, Bukayo Saka, who's obviously been picked, and he's a bit of a regular now, but he's got, I think it's 1 Premier League goal, 2 assists this season. Marcus Rashford has obviously just come back from his injury. Again, though, he's a bit more established. Tammy Abraham's having a bit of a time of it. I think he's gone, is it 6 games now without a goal or an assist? After a very bright start over in Italy. So you just look at, you think, if on sort of ability and form, maybe Mason Greenwood should be in the team, because you look at the back end of last season, the start of this one, he's been playing very well. I think he's been one of Manchester United's bright sparks. All the focus has been on Cristiano Ronaldo, and I understand why, but you can't deny that Mason Greenwood has had a very positive start to the season. But there is sort of a caveat here, because you look at it and you go, what is going on with Greenwood in England? Does Southgate not fancy him? Does he still have a bit of a bee in his bonnet around the Iceland incident, which wouldn't make much sense considering Phil Foden's been back in the England fold since that happened, or I think he missed 1 squad. So, yeah, it does seem a little bit intriguing, shall we say. So Gareth Southgate has explained it. He says it's more to do with the sort of the conversation he's had with Mason Greenwood, and that it's actually Mason Greenwood's sort of decision himself. That's what he's kind of saying. He's saying Mason Greenwood opting out of England selection until next year. So he's saying that basically he spoke to Mason Greenwood and that Greenwood wanted to establish himself at United, and there was no suggestion that what happened before was affecting things, meaning I think that's a sort of a nod to the Iceland incident, if you can call it that. He says, we had a discussion before the camp in September and we came to an agreement. John McDermott, who's the FA's technical director, and myself went to United and had a good chat with Mason and his family, and we agreed we would park this until next year. Basically, we would leave the autumn games. If he establishes himself in Manchester United's team, then he's going to be very close to an England squad or an England team, so he recognises that. He wants to play for England. He's clear about that. We are not picking Mason because we don't think he's good enough, or we are not happy with what he requested. We are totally understanding of that, and we are happy to wait. Then goes on to say, also, we have seen lots of youth development, and this is his and his family's one and only chance. So they are understandably more cautious than we might be. We believe these boys can be very big players for England in the long term, and we don't want to get it wrong in the short term. Now, that doesn't look too shabby. When you look at it like that, you think, okay, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Southgate. I'm not a big fan of the way he's handled Mason Greenwood in the past. I thought putting him up for the interview with after Harry Maguire's incident in Mykonos was just poor form. I thought it was a ridiculous thing to put a teenager in front of the cameras and having to answer questions like that. But it seems now that according to what Gareth Southgate's saying anyway, it's a little bit of an agreement that he's going to give him a bit of time. Now, he said this in the past. He said he wanted to give Mason Greenwood a bit of time so he could focus on his Manchester United squad career, and that's more or less what he's saying now. Now, there are some sort of quotes doing the rounds, and it looks like some of them may have been taken out of context slightly, but it depends on how you look at this one with Gareth Southgate and Mason Greenwood. Do you think that Greenwood's that good that maybe Gareth Southgate should be saying to him, listen, I need you, you're ready, you're good enough, you can play a part in this squad, come and have a game against the likes of San Marino where, if you have it right, Mason Greenwood could feasibly score a hatful of goals against them and really get his England career going? Or should he just say, okay, I respect this, you maybe need to focus on that, you've had a sort of an amazing start to your United career. It's just been sort of phenomenal, but let's let you focus on that. Let's let you carry on. So it depends on which side of the fence you're on. For me, if I'm an England manager, I'd want him. I'd want him in my team. I would. I think he's the most gifted young England attacker we've got, naturally gifted attacker we've got. But from a United point of view, I'm not that bothered if he doesn't get involved in the England circus. I'm not fuming about it. And you see we've got a poll there. Should Mason Greenwood be in the England squad? Let us know yes or no what you think there. It's in the comments. So again, it's depending on what your point of view is. I think with many United fans, we have that sort of those memories and those sort of feelings about the way some United players have been treated by England. You look at the burning effigies of David Beckham, the death threats to Phil Neville, Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't even English, getting all sorts of abuse for winking after Wayne Rooney got himself sent off. It's the abuse that Marcus Rashford has had in the past because he missed the penalty. Jadon Sancho, of course, as well. And you just think, okay, maybe a young player like that, he's out of it. He's well out of it. We don't need him getting all the dramas that can come for England. But again, as a sort of an England manager or anyone who cares about England, you think you'd want your best players in there, and he's certainly not. So I don't know. Obviously, we don't know the sort of the details of that conversation that Gareth Southgate had with Mason Greenwood and his family. Were they sort of adamant? Were they, no, he's not playing for England now, we need you to do this for us? Was it a mutual thing? Was Gareth Southgate like, I don't know if he's ready, and they were like, okay, we're not that fussed if you want to give him a bit of time? It was all very strange. So we'll have to wait and see, but just from a sort of pure football point of view and from an England point of view, I think he should be in the team. And I think, if he was in the team, I think England would be better for it, because I think he's one of our best young attackers, and especially when you look at some of the seasons the other ones are having, like I mentioned, even Harry Kane is usually Mr. Reliable for England, and the one that everyone raves about. He's not been exactly setting the world alight this season so far, especially in the Premier League. So it is a bit of a funny one there, but we'll see what happens with that one. According to what Gareth Southgate's saying, it looks like it's just the autumn games. I think it's next year, is it? Well, obviously it's next year. The next sort of England fixtures, so maybe he'll feature them and all this, but put to bed. I think no matter what, I just can't imagine a scenario where Mason Greenwood doesn't go to the next World Cup. I think that'd be amazing if that doesn't happen. And I think one thing it should be in the back of Gareth Southgate's mind is I've got to get him some England games under his belt before that World Cup happens. So yeah, we'll see what goes down with that one, but we'll keep you posted as always. I'm pretty sure you're going to find out anyway, because it's all over the papers as usual. There's also the little aside as well of Jadon Sancho didn't get a call up either. Gareth Southgate spoke about that, and he sort of spoke about the fact that obviously it's pretty obvious what's going on with Jadon Sancho. We spoke a little bit like that about this last night, me and Joe, on the live show. Gareth Southgate spoke out and said we can support and back, but in the end you cannot do that forever. There has to be a point where you say, okay, the route here is we have to bring in different players who are playing regularly and can perform for us this time around. There's no point carrying lads if we don't think we can use them. Sancho's just not quite getting enough games, I think, is what he's getting there. And he says, someone put it to Southgate that, Sancho's got to the top very quickly, and Southgate replied, I would say that is how people view a lot of our young players, but what is the top? These boys will still be learning the game, how to be professionals. Jadon is adapting to a new club, a different style of play, so they're not at the top yet. They're young players making their way. So that kind of clears that up, sort of, depending if you believe it all or not. That's what Gareth Southgate's take is on it, and he's sort of saying, it's not a case of I don't rate Mason Greenwood or that I'm in a mood with him because of what happened in Iceland. I've just had a chat with him and his family, and we're going to give him a bit more time to get his sort of United career blossoming. Moving on from one young player to one experienced one, Edinson Cavani. Edinson Cavani has done an interview, I think, for the United Review. He's been speaking ahead of the derby, and there's a sort of story in the Mirror. I think we've got it. It says Edinson Cavani fires selection message to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer ahead of the Manchester derby. And it says Manchester United forward Edinson Cavani has called on boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to play him against Manchester City. And then it goes on to say the sort of the quote from El Matador. I understand perfectly well what these games mean, and I just feel how significant a derby is for a club and its fan base. I think there are some games that are really special because of all the history behind them and the rivalry that exists with the other club. They are the kind of games that I think everyone, including me at least, wants to be involved in because they are very special occasions. I mean, you know, player wants to play in big game isn't the most earth-shattering news, is it, if we're being brutally honest? I'd like to see Cavani start, to be honest. I thought he played well against Spurs. I'd like to see him and Ronaldo linking up. And I think that if you are going to play a 5-3-2, then Cavani and Ronaldo, despite their age, it can work. I've said this on the preview. If you didn't know their ages and you just watched them, you wouldn't think that was a pair of 30-odd-year-olds running around. You'd think they were a lot younger. Both looked after themselves, both full of beans. And I know Spurs was a bit of a tapping, really, wasn't it? Sort of not really one where you can go, well, you beat Spurs, you can beat anyone. No. So you can't look too much into it. But we've seen enough. I've seen enough. And I love Edinson Cavani, and obviously Ronaldo's going to start in it. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Cavani in the team for the derby. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer under pressure, as always. I'm going to go through some of the chat. CeeLo James John says, ban Southgate from Old Trafford whenever he comes. Whenever he comes to watch, we have a bad game and Mason tries to impress him. And then just people say, James Dunn says Mace is a red. Top Dog says he upset Southgate when he broke the rules. That done him no favours. Well, what about Foden then? And someone else says that. Yeah, what about Foden? You know, you can't have it for one rule for one and one rule for other. Sneezy Lasagna, which is one of my favourite names, says, Cavani is my favourite player, but Rashford is City's kryptonite. He has to play over him. Interesting. I had Rashford. I thought he could score. I thought he could come off the bench against City and cause them most of the problems later on. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But he has got a very good record against him. We love Marcus Rashford, don't we? And Emilio Bandara joining there and says, yeah, Rashford has to start. We will have the pre-match build-up and the game itself. Well, not the game itself. We'll have the watch-along for the game. And we'll also have the fans' reaction after the game as well. So make sure you are checking out the channel for all that stuff. Hit subscribe if you're not doing. Let's get to 700,000 subscribers by the end of the season. I've been Jay Motty. This has been the Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.